Greetings! In this video we're going to be looking at AK Interactive's Real Colours acrylic markers. I recently purchased these markers from my local hobby store, having seen them in a video ages back where I vaguely remember being interested in them, so I figured I'd check them out. I gave them a bit of a test myself, and I was impressed enough to want to share my thoughts. Now, just to get it out of the way, this is not a sponsor. I've not been paid to speak about these, and I spent my own money here. So I bought these 3 combo packs, plus white by itself. These packs have some overlap, resulting in me having 2 dark aluminium markers. But that's my favourite so far, so I guess it worked out. I've taken to painting the caps to give me a better example of the colour, as the label colours are a bit off. This spot on the cap is rough, unlike the plastic around it, which might suggest this was a planned feature, I don't know. This brown marker is very different from the label. The non-metallic colours require a few coats to get full coverage. I'll show this a bit later. The actual colour here is a much more muted, more of a beech wood brown, not the rich earthy tone shown on the label. Something I find interesting is the use of English on these markers. The Real Colours brand is in US English, but the Aluminium is in British English. They're halfway right. I'll let you decide which is correct for yourself. As I mentioned, I tested these markers out myself earlier, wanting to see how they go at base coating things. The blue here is Citadel's McCrag Blue Air Paint over a black primer, but everything else here is done with the markers. I was planning on doing these front panels white, but the marker went over the edges so nicely I decided to keep it as a form of trim. The Ultima symbol on the door here was done too, as well as the rear panel and the cutouts that I'm painting as lights. The white takes a few coats to get full coverage. The lights were then filled in with these 2 colours. Super simple, but this was just me testing stuff. This was the first vehicle I printed, so it had some mistakes. It's based on one of the original Rhino models. I'm not sure which one exactly, and it's a lot smaller than the contemporary Rhino. This modern one on the other hand is the proper size. It's got some warped pieces where it slipped during printing, but it'll suit as a background vehicle. You can see some bits sticking out on the tracks. There's a lot of these little bits that I forgot to clean up after printing, which will definitely slow the painting, and they may damage the marker tip if I go roughly over them. So just be aware if you've got anything like that on your models. Anyway, you can see how smooth it applies over the tracks. It's pretty chunky, so I can struggle to get into some of these tight spots, like the inside of the tracks, so it has a limited use for that sort of stuff. It's still faster than a brush, and any spots you don't reach, you can go in with a similar silver. It's not like it's going to matter too much in there. I feel like this marker works best on the base of the tracks. As you can see, it's struggling a bit over the coarse surface here though, where the tracks snap during assembly a total of 8 times, but on the smoother surfaces it works wonders. This would be a dream on plastic. Following the shape of the track links, then pressing a little on the recesses is all you need to do here. It feels super satisfying, and as I'm sure many of you agree, base coating silver on tanks, especially the tracks, is an immense time sink. The tracks in my previous example were painted in 15 minutes, without needing to thin a paint or clean a brush. The road wheels were easy to paint too, though I'm never sure if they should stay coloured or not. It feels like they should be silver, but most tanks in real life have them painted the same colour as the armour, so I'm a bit of a loss here. Unlike the last example, the tyres on these road wheels are a bit too small to paint black with a marker, so I'll paint them in with a normal brush later. I found the rubber black to be too bright for these tyres, with the previous example using flat black instead. You could try and use these for highlighting. They might be a bit too big for that though. These exhausts are pretty small, though were painted pretty easy with the markers. The marker fits inside the exhaust here, making painting the inside of the exhaust tube simple. This vent was also simple. The other 2 metallic markers perform roughly the same as this, they just have a different colour. Now onto the non-metallic colours, starting with the flat white. I applied this over the Ultima marking on the side door. This goes on as easy as the others, though I had to be careful as I embossed the Ultima glyph myself before 3D printing, and it's not sticking out very far. The white colour itself is very bright. It's probably akin to White Scar, or one of the titanium whites from other brands, though it needs a few coats to get full coverage. It's hard to see the lack of coverage on camera, so here's my trademarked coverage cam. I applied a few more coats, about 5 in total, which resulted in complete coverage. Each coat takes about 10 seconds to dry, so it's a pretty fast application, especially when comparing to normal white paints over a blue like this. Now we're onto the chipping colour. This colour is akin to a more pale Rhinox hide. I think it's a mix between that and storm vermin fur. I tried applying it in a similar method to sponge chipping, doing small dots and trying to draw scratches. The marker isn't small enough for fine detail, but it can still do some nice larger chips, which you can then go and reinforce with small ones with a brush, or with sponge chipping. I decided to try adding metallic chips to the inside of these brown chips. I went a bit slower here, using the tip of the marker to add some scuff marks. I think it looks really cool, though I definitely went overboard. And maybe this gunmetal is a bit too shiny for this, though an enamel or an oil wash could turn that down a bit. The final test is on a base rim. This old Scout biker model was rescued from when I was a kid. I used to paint each part before gluing them together, with some kind of weird super glue that melted the paint and often frosted. Not a good time, and recovering them has proved difficult. The base itself was primed through a rattle can spray primer, though I didn't shake it enough, which resulted in a rough surface. The marker proved well enough here though, it just needed 2 coats. The finish was a mix of satin and matte, which I'm fairly sure was the work of the primer, as the first example, the Rhino, was fine. And here we have it. Some random thoughts on these random markers. I'll admit I haven't used them too much yet, but I will definitely be using them for base coating large metallic areas, where being messy doesn't matter, as well as painting the edges of bases. Anything smaller than what I showed you I believe isn't worth doing. These markers are pretty big and clumsy. That being said, they will speed up certain tasks, so it's a win for me. They're good to paint over too, with other acrylics or enamels, so a silver base coat followed by an oil would be a super quick way to get a nice result. If you've tried these markers out for yourself, let me know in the comments what you thought, or if you can think of another way they might be useful. They have a fairly large range of colours, but I knew they'd be a bit big for detailing, so I went with metallics and weathering tones. Anyway, I'll be back next week with another Space Marine chapter. Hope you stick around for that one.